The morning sun rose over New Busan Colony like any other day. Hyunwoo Park stood on the observation deck of the administrative center, watching farmers head to their fields. The golden wheat swayed in the gentle breeze, and children ran between the crystal formations that dotted the landscape. New Busan was beautiful. 2 million humans called this world home, and they had built something special here. The cities were clean and bright, with gardens everywhere. The air smelled of flowers and fresh bread. It was the kind of place people dreamed about when they looked up at the stars from Earth. Hyunwoo smiled as he watched Jin Ho Kim loading his hover truck with vegetables. The old farmer always started work before sunrise. His granddaughter Naon sat beside him, her small hands helping to arrange the produce. She was only 6 years old but already loved the farm more than anything. "Another good harvest," Hyunwoo said to his assistant. "The Velkari crystals are helping our crops grow better than ever." The Velkari were the native people of this world. They looked like walking trees made of clear crystal, beautiful and peaceful. When humans first arrived, many people worried there would be problems. But the Velkari welcomed them. They shared their knowledge about the planet and helped humans understand how to live here without damaging the environment. Hyunwoo's morning routine was interrupted by an urgent beep from his communication device. Captain So-min Lee's face appeared on the screen. She looked worried, which was unusual. So-min never worried about anything. "Sir, we need you in the command center right now," she said. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big approaching our system." Hyunwoo frowned. Supply ships weren't due for another month. "What kind of something big?" "The kind that doesn't answer our calls," So-min replied. "And it's moving fast." 20 minutes later, Hyunwoo stood in the command center staring at the main screen. What he saw made his stomach drop. Dozens of massive ships were entering their star system. They were dark and angular, nothing like the smooth curves of human vessels. "Any response to our communications?" Hyunwoo asked. "Nothing," said Communications Officer Yoon-sik Han. "They're not even acknowledging our existence." So-min pointed at the tactical display. "Those ships are huge. Each one is bigger than our entire defense fleet. And look at their energy readings." The numbers on the screen were terrifying. These ships carried enough firepower to destroy cities. New Busan's small defense force had 6 patrol boats and a few automated satellites. They were completely outmatched. "Sir," Yoon-sik said, his voice shaking, "I'm getting a transmission from the lead ship." The main screen flickered and changed. A creature appeared that made several people in the command center step backward. It was reptilian, with dark scales and yellow eyes that seemed to burn with hate. When it spoke, its voice was like gravel mixed with poison. "Humans of this world," the creature said, "I am war leader Scarth of the Drakari hegemony. You have built your colony on land that now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately and prepare for relocation." Hyunwoo found his voice. "This is Administrator Hyunwoo Park of New Busan Colony. This world is protected by Earth treaties. You have no legal claim here." The Drakari leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "Legal claim? We are Drakari. We take what we want. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures. Any resistance will be met with total destruction." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent, except for the humming of computers and the distant sound of children playing outside. "Options?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. So-min looked at her tactical display. "With our current forces? None. We can't fight them, and we can't evacuate 2 million people in an hour. Our transport ships can maybe carry 50,000. "What about the Velkari?" asked Dr. Tae-young Yang, the colony's chief scientist. He had arrived during the transmission, his face pale with worry. "They have underground crystal caves, deep ones." "Some people could hide there," So-min agreed. "But not everyone. And the Drakari will find them eventually." Hyunwoo closed his eyes. As administrator, the safety of every person on New Busan was his responsibility. He had helped build this world from nothing. He had watched babies take their first steps in the parks he designed. He had officiated weddings and comforted families during hard times. "Send a message to Earth," he said finally. "Full emergency broadcast. Tell them what's happening here." "Sir, Earth is 800 light-years away," Yoon-sik reminded him. "Even our fastest quantum relay will take time to get through. And any help they send will take months to reach us. Send it anyway, Hyunwoo ordered. Earth needs to know. As Yoon-sik worked at his station, alarms began blaring throughout the colony. The Drakari hour was almost up. On the main screen, they could see the alien ships moving into attack positions above the planet. Evacuation shuttles are launching, So-min reported, but we're only getting a few thousand people off-world. Through the observation windows, Hyunwoo could see panic in the streets. Families were running toward evacuation sites, carrying whatever they could. Some were heading for the Velkari crystal caves, hoping to hide underground until help arrived. Jin-ho Kim was still in his fields, but now he was loading his truck with Velkari civilians instead of vegetables. The crystal beings moved slowly, and many were too old or sick to run. The old farmer was helping them reach safety, even though it meant he might not escape himself. Drakari ships are powering weapons, So-min announced. They're targeting our cities. Open a channel to all civilians, Hyunwoo said. Tell them to take cover immediately. He grabbed the emergency communicator and spoke to his people one last time. This is Administrator Park. Take shelter now. Get underground if you can. Help your neighbors. Take care of the Velkari. And remember that Earth will not forget us. The first plasma beam struck the industrial district. The building shook, and the lights flickered. Through the windows, they could see a pillar of fire rising into the sky. Direct hit on the power plant, someone reported. Quantum relay is ready, Yoon-sik called out, sending final transmission to Earth now. More plasma beams rained down from the sky. The Drakari were not being careful about civilian targets. They were destroying everything, methodically turning New Busan's beautiful cities into ruins. On the emergency channel, they could hear Captain So-min coordinating what remained of their defenses. Her patrol boats were fighting desperately against impossible odds. One by one, their signals went silent. Jin-ho's truck is still moving, Dr. Yang said, pointing at a tracking screen. He's almost reached Cave Complex 7 with his Velkari. Passengers. Another explosion shook the building. This one was closer. Through the smoke and chaos, they could see Drakari landing craft descending from the sky like metal vultures. Sir, quantum transmission is complete, Yoon-sik reported. Earth will know what happened here. Hyunwoo nodded. It wasn't much, but it was something. Earth would learn that New Busan had fallen. They would know that the Drakari were expanding their territory, destroying peaceful colonies, and maybe, just maybe, Earth would do something about it. The last thing the command center cameras recorded was Jin-ho Kim's hover truck disappearing into the crystal caves, carrying the final group of Velkari refugees to safety. The old farmer had saved dozens of lives even as his world burned around him. Then the building shook one final time, and everything went dark. 800 light-years away, Earth received New Busan's final message. The transmission was broken and filled with static, but the meaning was clear. A human colony had been attacked without warning. 2 million people were dead or missing. The Drakari had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were dealing with just another weak species that would accept defeat quietly. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The message from New Busan reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. President Woo Jin-choi was having breakfast with his family when his emergency communicator started flashing red. He had been president for 6 years and had never seen that particular alarm before. Sir, you need to come to the emergency command center immediately, said his chief of staff. We have a Code Black situation. Code Black meant the complete destruction of a human colony. It was the worst possible news. 30 minutes later, President Choi stood in the underground command center beneath Geneva, watching the broken transmission from New Busan play on the main screen. The image was fuzzy and filled with static, but he could make out burning buildings and panic in the streets. How many people? He asked quietly. 2.3 million civilians, replied General Min-ho Kang, head of Earth's military forces, plus unknown numbers of Velkari natives. The colony was completely unprepared for military attack. What do we know about these Drakari? President Choi asked. Dr. Sujin Lee, Earth's leading expert on alien species, stepped forward. Very little. They've been expanding their territory for the past 50 years, but always in the outer rim where we don't have colonies. They're militaristic, aggressive, and they don't negotiate. And they're 800 light years away, added Admiral Yoon Ji Seo, commander of the Solar Defense Force. Even with our fastest ships, any rescue mission would take 4 months to reach New Busan's system. President Choi watched the transmission again. He could see families running through the streets, children crying, and brave defenders trying to fight against impossible odds. These were his people. Every human in the galaxy was his responsibility. "How long since the attack?" he asked. 72 hours, General Kang replied. "The quantum relay took time to reach us through deep space." "Then it's over," Admiral Seo said sadly. "The Drakari don't take prisoners. They conquer completely." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. New Busan was gone. 2 million humans were dead, and there was nothing Earth could do about it. But then Dr. Tae-Young Yang stepped forward from the back of the room. He was not a military man or a politician. He was a scientist who studied ancient alien cultures, and he was crying. "With respect, Admiral, you're wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "Some of them might still be alive. The Velkari have deep underground caves made of crystal. They're nearly impossible to detect from orbit. Some of our people could be hiding there." "Dr. Yang," President Choi said gently, "even if survivors exist, we can't reach them in time. 4 months is too long." "My daughter Na Yoon is 6 years old," Dr. Yang said, tears streaming down his face. "She lives with my father Jin Ho on his farm outside the main city. She wanted to be a farmer like her grandfather. She loved to help him plant seeds and watch them grow." He wiped his eyes and looked directly at the president. "I know the odds. I know how far away they are. But she's my little girl. My father raised me after my mother died, and now he's raising her because my wife died in an accident last year. They're all the family I have left." Dr. Yang's voice grew stronger as he continued. "New Busan was named after the city that was destroyed in the Third Korean War. My grandmother lived there. She told me stories about how the city was rebuilt, how people refused to give up even when everything seemed hopeless." He looked around, the room at the military officers and government officials. "We don't abandon family. That's what makes us human. That's what separates us from creatures like the Drakari." "Dr. Yang," Admiral Seo said carefully, "I understand your pain, but we're talking about the largest military operation in human history. The cost would be enormous, and the chances of success are tiny." "Then we make them bigger," said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Fleet Admiral Dong-Hyun Park entering the room. He was a legend in the Solar Defense Force, the man who had led humanity's first deep space exploration missions. He had been missing for 2 years, presumed dead after his ship disappeared beyond the outer rim. "Admiral Park," President Choi said in surprise, "we thought you were lost." "I was exploring," Park replied, "learning about our neighbors, and I can tell you this, the Drakari are bullies. They pick on worlds that can't fight back. They've never faced real opposition. Even so," General Kang said, "the logistics alone would be impossible. Moving enough ships and supplies 800 light years, the cost would bankrupt Earth." "What's the cost of letting them get away with it?" Park asked. "If we do nothing, every alien species in the galaxy will think humans are weak. The Drakari will attack more colonies. Other aggressive species will follow their example." He walked to the main display and pointed at the star map. "But if we respond with overwhelming force, if we show the galaxy that attacking humans brings terrible consequences, no one will ever try this again." President Choi studied the faces around the room. These were good people, smart people, and they were all struggling with an impossible decision. Send a massive fleet on a mission that might be pointless, or let the destruction of New Busan go unanswered. "What would such a mission require?" he asked. Admiral Seo consulted her tablet. "At minimum, 5,000 ships, probably more. Every major vessel in the Solar Defense Force, plus support craft, supply ships, mobile shipyards for repairs during the journey. We'd be stripping Earth's defenses completely." "Personnel?" President Choi asked. 2 million military and support staff," General Kang replied, "plus civilian volunteers for reconstruction if we find any survivors." "Cost?" "More than the annual budget of the entire Earth government," said Finance Minister Hye-Jin Bae, who had joined the meeting. "It would require contributions from every human colony, every corporation, every government agency." President Choi closed his eyes and thought about his own children sleeping safely in their beds upstairs. He thought about Dr. Yang's daughter, Na-eun, who might be hiding in a crystal cave 800 light-years away, wondering if anyone was coming to help her. "There's something else to consider," Dr. Yang said quietly. "The Velkari. They're not just our allies on New Busan. They're good people. They welcomed us to their world, shared their knowledge, helped us build our colony. If we abandon them now, what does that say about us?" "The doctor is right," Admiral Park agreed. "This isn't just about military strategy or costs. It's about who we are as a species. Are we the kind of people who protect the innocent? Or do we only care about ourselves?" President Choi opened his eyes and looked around the room one more time. "I need to address the Global Assembly. This decision is too big for one person to make." 3 hours later, representatives from every human nation and colony gathered in the assembly hall. President Choi stood at the podium and told them what had happened to New Busan. He showed them the broken transmissions, the images of burning cities, the final desperate messages from people who knew they were going to die. Then he presented the choice. Spend everything on a mission that might be hopeless, or let the attack go unanswered. Dr. Yang spoke to the assembly about his daughter and the grandfather who was probably protecting her. Admiral Park explained why showing weakness would invite more attacks. Others argued about costs and risks and the probability of success. But in the end, the decision was simple. Representative after representative stood up and said the same thing. We don't abandon family. The vote was unanimous. Operation Starfall was approved. As news of the decision spread across Earth and the colonies, something remarkable happened. Corporations offered their entire fleets. Civilian shipyards volunteered to work around the clock building new vessels. Military reservists came out of retirement. Families donated their savings. Humanity was going to war, and everyone wanted to help. In his private office that night, President Choi looked at a picture of New Busan taken just 1 month before the attack. Children were playing in crystal gardens while their parents worked in the fields. It was the kind of peaceful scene that people fought wars to protect. "We're coming," he said quietly to the photograph. "Hold on just a little longer. Help is on the way." 800 light-years away in the deep crystal caves beneath New Busan's ruins, Jin-Ho Kim held his granddaughter Na-eun close as explosions echoed from the surface above. The old farmer didn't know if anyone on Earth had received their message. He didn't know if help was coming, but he knew one thing for certain. As long as he was alive, he would keep the children safe. That was what grandfathers did. 6 months after the fall of New Busan, the shipyards around Earth never slept. Day and night, sparks flew from welding torches as workers built the largest fleet in human history. Admiral Eun-ji Seo stood on the observation deck of Titan Shipyard, watching as another massive battleship took shape in the construction bay. "The Inchin's Revenge will be ready for launch tomorrow," reported Captain Yeon-Soo Lim, the ship's designated commander. "Final weapons tests completed this morning." SEO nodded as she studied the 1-kilometer-long vessel. It was beautiful and terrible, bristling with enough firepower to destroy small moons. But it was just one ship among thousands. "Status of the rest of the fleet?" SEO asked. 12,000 ships total," Lim replied, reading from her tablet. 400 dreadnoughts, 800 heavy cruisers, 2,000 destroyers, 1,500 support vessels, and the rest are specialized craft. Mobile shipyards, hospital ships, supply carriers, troop transports. And they're all volunteer. Crews? Every single one, Lim confirmed. We actually had to turn people away. Everyone wants to be part of this mission. SEO could understand why. The attack on New Busan had shocked humanity in a way that nothing else had. For the first time since reaching the stars, humans realized they were not alone in the galaxy, and not everyone out there was friendly. A communication alert interrupted her thoughts. "Admiral? Fleet Admiral Park is requesting a meeting in conference, room 7. She found Admiral Dong-hyun Park studying holographic star maps with a group of other senior officers. His hair had gone completely gray during the 6 months of preparation, but his eyes burned with determination. "Admiral Seo," he said without looking up from the display, "we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The route to New Busan takes us through 3 star systems controlled by other alien species," Park explained. "We need permission to pass through their territory, or we'll have to take much longer routes that could add months to our journey." "Have we contacted these species?" SEO asked. "That's the problem," said Dr. Sujin Lee, who was serving as the fleet's diplomatic advisor. "Two of the three species refused to respond to our messages. The third, the Zephyrians, said they're neutral and won't allow any military vessels through their space." SEO frowned. "They're protecting the Drakari?" "More like they're afraid of them," Dr. Lee replied. "The Zephyrians are peaceful traders. They don't want to anger the Drakari by helping us." "Then we go around," CO said. "That adds 4 months to our journey," Park replied grimly. "If anyone is still alive on New Busan, they won't survive that long." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the horrible mathematics of the situation. Every day they delayed meant less chance of finding survivors. "There might be another option," said a new voice from the doorway. They turned to see Commander Sang-Ho Kang, the fleet's chief supply officer. He looked exhausted, having worked 18-hour days for months to organize the logistics of the massive expedition. "What option?" Park asked. "We don't ask for permission," Kang said simply. "We tell them we're coming through, and we make it clear that anyone who tries to stop us will regret it." Dr. Lee looked shocked. "Commander, that would be an act of war against neutral species. It would make us just like the Drakari." "No," Park said slowly. "It would make us honest. We're not conquering their worlds or enslaving their people. We're just passing through to rescue our own." "And if they attack us?" SEO asked. "Then we defend ourselves," Park replied. "But I don't think it will come to that. Most species respond to strength. When they see 12,000 human warships, they'll decide that neutrality means staying out of our way." 3 days later, the human fleet began departing Earth. It was a sight that would be remembered for generations. Ships launched from every orbital platform around Earth, Mars, and the outer planets. The smallest vessels were 100 meters long. The largest were massive mobile shipyards nearly 3 kilometers from end to end. Captain Yonsu Lim stood on the bridge of the Inchun's Revenge as her ship cleared Earth's gravity well. Behind her, the fleet stretched out like a metal river flowing between the stars. The sight gave her chills. "Navigator, set course for the first jump point," she ordered. "Aye, Captain. Course laid in. Communications, open a fleet-wide channel." "Channel. Open, Captain." Lim took a deep breath. She was about to give the order that would begin humanity's longest journey. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Operation Starfall is now active. Jump when ready." One by one, the ships began disappearing in flashes of blue light as their faster-than-light drives activated. It took 3 hours for the entire fleet to make the jump to hyperspace. Dr. Tae-Young Yang stood in the science bay of the command ship, watching the stars stretch into lines as they entered faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead of them, 800 light-years away, his daughter might still be alive. "Sir," said his assistant, Engineer Mi Kyung. "Oh, the crystal resonance weapon is ready for testing." Yang turned to look at the device they had built using technology learned from the Valkyrie. It was beautiful, like a musical instrument made of pure crystal, but it was designed to be a weapon. "The Valkyrie crystals create specific frequency patterns," Yang explained to the engineers gathered around them. "These patterns can disrupt the neural implants that all Drakari soldiers use to coordinate their attacks." "How effective will it be?" asked O. "We won't know until we use it in battle," Yang admitted. "But the simulations show it should cause confusion and communication breakdown in Drakari forces." O nodded. Her husband had died defending New Busan's power stations, and she had volunteered for this mission to honor his memory. "Then let's make sure it works perfectly." As the fleet traveled through hyperspace, life aboard the ships settled into a routine. Soldiers trained for the battles ahead. Engineers worked on weapons and equipment. Medical staff prepared for casualties. Everyone understood that they were part of something historic. In the crew quarters of the Soul's Pride, Marine Commander Kyung-Hwan Lim briefed his troops on what they might find when they reached New Busan. "The Drakari don't take prisoners. For long," he told them. "If anyone is still alive, they'll either be hiding in the underground caves or working as slaves in mining operations." "Sir," asked Sergeant Junho Park, "what are our rules of engagement?" "Simple," Lim replied. "Protect human and Valkyrie civilians at all costs. Any Drakari who surrender will be treated according to galactic law. Any who don't surrender will be eliminated. What about Drakari civilians? Asked another Marine. Intelligence says the Drakari don't have civilians, Lim answered. Their entire society is military. Every adult is a soldier. 2 months into the journey, the fleet encountered its first test. They reached the border of Zephyrian space, and a squadron of alien ships moved to intercept them. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer aboard the Incheon's Revenge. The main screen showed a Zephyrian commander, a tall humanoid with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Human fleet, you are entering neutral space without permission. Turn back immediately. Admiral Park stepped forward. This is Fleet Admiral Dong-Hyun Park of the Human Expeditionary Force. We are passing through your territory to reach our colony at Kepler 442b. We have no hostile intentions toward your people. You cannot pass, the Zephyrian replied. We have treaties with the Drakari hegemony. Allowing your military fleet through our space would be an act of war. Then we have a problem, Park said calmly, because we're going through whether you like it or not. The Zephyrian commander looked shocked. You would attack neutral vessels. We would defend ourselves if attacked, Park replied. But we have no quarrel with your people. Stand aside, and no one gets hurt. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The human fleet continued moving forward, 12,000 ships that could destroy anything in their path. The small Zephyrian squadron found itself facing impossible odds. We cannot stop you, the Zephyrian commander finally admitted. But we will file protests with the Galactic Council. File whatever you want, Park replied. Just stay out of our way. As the human fleet passed through Zephyrian space, word of their passage spread throughout the galaxy. A species that had been considered peaceful and defensive was showing a different side. When humans decided to fight, they fought with everything they had. On the 3rd month of their journey, Scout Captain Jun Seok-an led reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence about Drakari positions. His fast ships jumped ahead of the main fleet, mapping enemy defenses and looking for any signs of human survivors. Sir, his navigator reported, we're picking up communications from the new Busan system. It's definitely Drakari military traffic. What are they saying? An asked. They're talking about mining operations, the communications officer replied. And they mentioned human laborers several times. An felt his heart jump. They're keeping people alive? It sounds like it, sir. The transmissions are talking about production quotas and work schedules. For the first time in months, An allowed himself to hope. Some of the colonists had survived. The mission wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about rescue. But as his ships got closer to the new Busan system, they discovered the true scale of what they were facing. The Drakari had turned the colony, world, into a fortress. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet. Military base. 8 months after leaving Earth, the human fleet had become a city moving through space. Inside the massive ships, 2 million people lived and worked while traveling toward their destination. Supply Master Sang-Ho Kang walked through the cargo, bays of the Terra's hammer, checking inventory lists that seemed to grow longer every day. We're using more food than expected, reported his assistant, Lieutenant Hyejin Bei. The stress of the long journey is making people eat more. Kang nodded as he studied the numbers on his tablet. Keeping 2 million people fed, clothed, and supplied during an 8-month journey was the most complex logistics operation in human history. Every day brought new challenges. What about fuel for the ships? He asked. We're actually ahead of schedule there, Bei replied. The new fusion reactors are more efficient than we calculated, but we're low on medical supplies and spare parts for the fighters. Send a request to the mobile shipyards, Kang ordered. Have them manufacture what we need during the next rest stop. The fleet had to stop every few weeks to refuel, make repairs, and give the crews a break from the strain of faster-than-light travel. During these stops, the mobile shipyards worked around the clock to build new equipment and repair damage. Navigator Hyejin Bei stood on the bridge of the Incheon's Revenge, plotting their course through a dangerous asteroid field. The route to New Busan took them through some of the most hostile regions of space, areas where pirates and hostile aliens might be hiding. Sir, she reported to Admiral Park, we're approaching the Kepler 186 system. Intelligence says there might be Drakari outposts here. Park studied the star map on the main display. What kind of outposts? Supply stations, probably, Bay replied. Places where they refuel ships traveling between their colonies. Perfect, Park said with a cold smile. Let's pay them a visit. 3 hours later, human scouts found exactly what they were looking for. Hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid was a Drakari supply station. It was heavily defended with patrol ships and automated weapon platforms protecting fuel depots and ammunition storage. Sir, reported Scout Captain Jun Seok On over the communication system, the station has about 50 ships defending it. They've spotted our scouts and are powering up their weapons. Are they trying to communicate? Park asked. No, sir. They're just getting ready to fight. Then let's not disappoint them, Park replied. All attack squadrons, you are cleared to engage. The battle was brief but intense. Human fighters swarmed the Drakari station like angry wasps, overwhelming the defenders with sheer numbers. The Drakari fought bravely, but they were outnumbered 50-1. Within 2 hours, the station was destroyed and its defenders eliminated. The human fleet salvaged what supplies they could use and continued on their journey. Send a message. To all ships, Park ordered. The Drakari now know we're coming. From here on, we should expect resistance. As news of the battle spread through the fleet, morale improved dramatically. For months, they had been traveling through empty space, wondering if they would ever get the chance to fight back against the aliens who had destroyed New Busan. Now they had drawn first blood. Dr. Tae-Young Yang stood in his laboratory aboard the command ship, working on improvements to the crystal resonance weapons. His daughter's face smiled at him from a picture on his desk, taken just days before the attack on New Busan. Sir, said engineer Mi Kyung. Oh, we're getting some interesting data from the battle. The Drakari neural implants react even more strongly to our crystal frequencies than we expected. Yang looked up from his work. How much more strongly? The captured communication intercepts show they experienced complete sensory disruption, Oh replied. Blindness, deafness, loss of coordination. The effect lasted for almost 10 minutes. Excellent, Yang said, making notes. If we can disrupt their coordination during the main battle, it will give us a huge advantage. But Yang's satisfaction was mixed with worry. Every day that passed meant his daughter and grandfather had been prisoners for another day. He tried not to think about what the Drakari might be doing to human captives. The fleet's next major discovery came during a rest stop in an empty star system. While the ships were refueling, long-range sensors detected something unexpected hiding behind one of the system's outer planets. Sir, reported the sensor operator aboard the Soul's Pride, we're reading artificial structures on that asteroid. They're trying to hide, but our scanners are picking up power signatures. Admiral Park ordered a squadron of fast ships to investigate. What they found changed everything. Hidden in a hollowed-out asteroid was a small ship unlike anything in human databases. It was beautiful, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to be made of living crystal. When the human ships approached, it began broadcasting a weak distress signal. Admiral, called Captain On over the communication system, you need to see this. We've found Velkari survivors. An hour later, representatives from the refugee ship were brought aboard the Inchin's Revenge. The lead Velkari was an elderly being whose crystal body had taken on a deep blue color with age. Through a translation device, it introduced itself as Elder Crystalline Song of Memory. But the humans had given it a simpler name during the early days of the colony. They called it Sungmin, and it had been one of the first Velkari to welcome human settlers to New Busan. Sungmin, Dr. Yang said, his voice breaking with emotion. You're alive. Are there others? What happened to the humans? The old Velkari's crystal body pulsed with sad colors. Many died when the fire fell from the sky, it said through the translator. But some survived. Your people Jinho and little Nayun, they saved many of us. Took us to the deep caves where the metal ships cannot see. Yang felt his knees go weak. His daughter was alive. His father was alive. Where are they now? Admiral Park asked. Still hiding in the crystal caves, Sungmin replied. But the Drakari have found some of the tunnels. They take people to work in the mines, force them to dig for rare crystals that make their weapons stronger. How many humans are still alive? Dr. Yang asked. Perhaps 50,000, the Velkari elder replied. Maybe more hiding in caves we have not found. But many are sick. Not enough food, not enough medicine. And the Drakari are cruel masters. Park and Yang exchanged glances. 50,000 survivors was more than they had dared to hope for, but it also made their mission more complicated. They would need to plan a careful rescue operation, not just a military attack. "Sungmin," Park said, "will you help us? Will you guide us to where the survivors are hiding?" The Velkari's crystal body flashed with determined colors. "The Drakari destroyed our gardens, enslaved our people, turned our beautiful world into a place of fear. Yes, we will help you. We will help you make them pay for what they have done." As the fleet prepared to resume its journey, Yang stood in his quarters looking at updated intelligence reports. The Drakari had turned New Busan into a fortress world, but they had also made a critical mistake. They had kept human prisoners alive to work as slave labor in the crystal mines. That meant the mission was no longer just about revenge, it was about rescue. But the new information also revealed the true scale of what they were facing. Orbital, defense platforms, ground-based weapon systems, a garrison of 100,000 Drakari soldiers, and fortified positions throughout the colony's former cities. "Sir," said Commander Kyung-Hwan Lim during the next strategy meeting, "our Marines are trained for ground combat, but assaulting a fortified world is going to be extremely difficult. We'll take heavy casualties." "What about civilian casualties?" Dr. Yang asked. "If we attack too aggressively, we might accidentally harm the people we're trying to save." Admiral Park studied the holographic display showing New Busan's current state. The planet was covered with military installations, but scattered throughout them were mining camps where human prisoners were being held. "We'll need to be surgical," he decided. "Take out the orbital defenses first, then coordinate ground strikes to avoid the prison camps. It won't be easy, but it's possible." "Sir," said Captain Yun-Su Lim, "what about their fleet? Intelligence reports at least 200 Drakari warships in the system." "We outnumber them 60 to 1, Park replied. "That should be enough." As the human fleet drew closer to their destination, the final pieces of their plan came together. The Velkari refugees would guide special forces teams to the hidden cave systems where survivors were hiding. The crystal resonance weapons would disrupt Drakari communications during the initial assault. Marine forces would secure the mining camps and free the prisoners. But first, they would have to fight their way through the largest concentration of Drakari military power ever assembled in one place. "All ships," Admiral Park announced to the fleet. "We are now 12 hours from the New Busan system. Final preparations for Operation Starfall are now in effect. Check your weapons, say your prayers, and remember why we're here. Throughout the Sci-Fi massive fleet, 2 million humans prepared for the largest battle in their species' history. Some wrote letters to families back on Earth. Others checked and rechecked their equipment. A few stood at observation windows, looking ahead toward the star system that held their destination." In the science bay of the command ship, Dr. Yang made final adjustments to the crystal resonance weapons while thinking about his daughter. She would be 7. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a swarm of metal locusts. 12,000 ships materialized in perfect formation, their combined mass so great that they created gravitational distortions in the space around them. On the bridge of the Incheon's Revenge, Admiral Eunji Seo watched the tactical display update as their sensors mapped the system. What they found was both better and worse than expected. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "Drakari fleet strength is approximately 200 ships, clustered around the planet, but those orbital defense platforms are massive. Each one has the firepower of a battleship." Admiral Dong-Hyun Park studied the display with cold eyes. The Drakari had built 12 orbital stations around New Busan, each one bristling with weapons designed to destroy attacking fleets. Between them, patrol ships moved in careful patterns. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it on screen," Park ordered. The display flickered and showed a Drakari commander sitting on what had once been Administrator Hyun-Woo Park's desk in the Colonial Government Building. The alien's yellow eyes burned with arrogance and hate. "I am War Leader Scarth," the creature said, its voice like grinding stone. "You are the humans who built this pathetic colony. You have come very far to die." Park stepped forward. his face showing no emotion. "I am Fleet Admiral Dong-Hyun Park of the Human Expeditionary Force. You have attacked our people without provocation. You have enslaved our citizens. Surrender now, and we will treat you according to galactic law." Scarth made that grinding sound that passed for Drakari laughter. "Surrender? We are the masters of this galaxy, little mammals. We do not surrender to prey animals." "Then you will die," Park replied simply. "All ships, you are cleared to engage. Operation Starfall is now active." The space battle erupted across 3 dimensions as 12,000 human ships accelerated toward the planet. The Drakari fleet moved to intercept them, their ships sleek and deadly, but they were like wolves facing a hurricane. Fighter pilot Yu Jung-nam launched from the carrier Busan's Hope in her new Valkyrie fighter. Around her, thousands of other small craft poured from the human fleet like angry bees from a disturbed hive. "Gold Squadron, form up on me," she called over the radio. "Target those patrol ships screening the orbital platforms." The first contact came at maximum range as Drakari and human missiles crossed in space. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as warheads found their targets. Several human ships took damage, but the Drakari were already being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Sir," reported Captain Yun-Su Lim from the bridge of the Incheon's Revenge, "enemy fleet is breaking formation. They're falling back toward the orbital platforms." "Let them," Park replied. "All heavy units, concentrate fire on those orbital stations. I want them gone before we get within their range." The massive human battleships opened fire with their main guns. Beams of coherent energy and streams of projectiles reached across space to hammer the Drakari defenses. The orbital platforms returned fire, their powerful weapons punching holes through the armor of human ships. But for every human ship damaged, 10 more took its place. The sheer size of the human fleet was making the difference. The Drakari had never faced anything like this before. Dr. Tae-Young Yang stood in the command center of the Soul's Pride, watching the battle while preparing to activate his crystal resonance weapons. Around him, engineers monitored the equipment that might turn the tide of the fight. "Sir," called Engineer Mi-kyung. "Oh, all crystal arrays are charged and ready, targeting the Drakari command frequencies." "Activate on my mark," Yang replied, his hand hovering over the control panel. He thought about his daughter Na-eun, somewhere on the planet below, and his father Jin-ho, who was probably still protecting her. "Mark," he said, and pressed the button. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every crystal resonance weapon in the human fleet activated simultaneously, sending specific frequencies toward the Drakari ships. The aliens used neural implants to coordinate their military operations, linking every soldier and ship commander into a single network. The crystal frequencies tore through that network like a hurricane through a spider web. On the Drakari flagship, War Leader Scarth screamed in agony as his neural implants overloaded. Around him, his bridge crew collapsed, their sensory systems completely disrupted. Similar scenes played out across the entire Drakari fleet as their coordination network collapsed. "Sir," reported the tactical officer aboard the Incheon's Revenge, "enemy ships are falling out of formation. They're not responding to commands from their flagship." "All units, press the attack," Admiral Seo ordered. "Take advantage of their confusion." The human fleet surged forward like a tidal wave of metal and energy. Drakari ships, blinded and confused by the resonance weapons, fired wildly or not at all. Some crashed into their own orbital platforms. Others simply drifted helplessly in space. Fighter pilot Yu Jung-nam dove her Valkyrie through a gap in the Drakari formation, her weapons blazing. Around her, the space battle had become a massacre as the human fleet systematically destroyed everything in its path. "Gold Leader, to all fighters," she called over the radio. "The orbital platforms are down. Begin ground support operations." Below them, the planet New Busan looked nothing like the peaceful agricultural world it had once been. The Drakari had covered it with military bases, mining operations, and slave camps. Smoke rose from a dozen locations where human bombardment had already begun. Marine Commander Kyung-hwan Lim stood in the launch bay of the Terra's Hammer, checking his equipment one final time. Around him, 10,000 Marines prepared for the largest ground assault in human history. "Listen up," he called to his troops. "Our primary mission is to secure the mining camps and free our people. Secondary mission is to eliminate Drakari resistance. Remember, there are human prisoners down there, so watch your targets. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the planet below. Hundreds of assault shuttles dropped toward the surface like falling stars, carrying Marines to battle. But the Drakari weren't finished yet. Ground-based weapons opened fire on the descending shuttles, and Drakari fighters that had survived the space battle tried to intercept the human transports. "Incoming missiles," called the pilot of Lim's shuttle. "Hold on, this is going to be rough." The shuttle shook as defensive systems engaged, shooting down enemy missiles while diving toward the surface. Through the windows, Lim could see other shuttles taking hits, some exploding in mid-air, others crash-landing in the ruins of what had once been peaceful cities. They landed in what had been New Busan's main agricultural district, where Jin-Ho Kim had once grown crops in crystal-enhanced soil. Now the area was covered with Drakari military installations and mining equipment. "Move out," Lim ordered as the shuttle doors opened. "Alpha Company, secure the landing zone. Bravo Company, advance on Mining Camp 7. The battle on the ground was brutal and close quarters. Drakari soldiers were individually stronger and more aggressive than humans, but they were still suffering from the effects of the resonance weapons. Many were disoriented, unable to coordinate their defenses effectively. Human Marines moved through the mining camp with methodical precision, clearing buildings room by room. What they found there made many of them stop and stare in horror. Human prisoners, thin and dirty from months of forced labor, looked up at their rescuers with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. Many were too weak to stand. Others were injured, from beatings or accidents in the dangerous mines. "Medical teams to Mining Camp 7 immediately," Lim called over his radio. "We have survivors and they need help now." As news of the successful landing spread through the human fleet, Admiral Park received reports from across the planet. Mining camps were being liberated one by one. The orbital battle was effectively over, with the last Drakari ships either destroyed or surrendering. But the most important discovery came from a team of Special Forces soldiers guided by Velkari refugees. Deep beneath the planet's surface, in crystal caves that the Drakari scanners couldn't penetrate, they found the largest group of survivors. "Sir," called the team leader over a crackling radio transmission, "We've found them. We've found the main survivor camp." The transmission was coming from Crystal Cave Complex 7, the same place where Jin-Ho Kim had taken the last group of Velkari refugees during the initial attack. When the Special Forces team descended into the caves, they found something remarkable. Nearly 30,000 humans had survived in the underground complex, protected by the Velkari and led by a handful of Colonial Defense Force officers. They had created an entire underground city, complete with hydroponic gardens, workshops, and even a small school for the children. And sitting in the central cavern, telling stories to a group of wide-eyed children, was an old farmer named Jin-Ho Kim. Beside him sat a 7-year-old girl with bright eyes and a smile that hadn't been broken by months of hiding and fear. "Grandfather," Nyon said, tugging on Jin-Ho's sleeve, "are those really Earth soldiers?" The old farmer looked up at the humans in military uniforms and smiled for the first time in almost a year. "Yes, little one. The family came to bring us home. Dr. Tae-Young Yang arrived at the cave complex 6 hours later, having taken the first shuttle down from the flu. 3 days after the liberation of New Busan, Marine Commander Kyung-Hwan Lim stood outside the entrance to Mining Camp 12, the last Drakari installation still holding human prisoners. His troops had surrounded the facility at dawn, but the Drakari commander inside was refusing to surrender. "Sir," reported Sergeant Jun-Ho Park over the radio, "the Drakari are using the prisoners as human shields. We can't get clean shots." Lim studied the mining facility through his binoculars. The Drakari had positioned human captives in front of every window and doorway, making a direct assault impossible without risking civilian lives. "Medical team standing by," called Dr. Su Jin Lee over the communication channel. "But we need those people out of there safely." Before Lim could respond, a new voice came over the radio. It was Elder Sung Min, the Velkari refugee who had been helping guide rescue operations. "Commander Lim," the crystal being said through its translator device, "there is another way. The mining facility connects to the old crystal cave system. We can approach from underground." 2 hours later, Lim led a small team of Marines through narrow crystal tunnels beneath the mining camp. The Velkari elder guided them through passages that had been carved by its people thousands of years ago. These caves saved many during the attack, Sungmin explained as they moved through the glowing tunnels. Your people Jinho and Na-un hid here with 300 others for the first week. Lim nodded, thinking about the stories he had heard from other survivors. The old farmer Jinho Kim had become something of a legend during the occupation, leading rescue missions to save both humans and Velkari from Drakari patrols. They emerged inside the mining facility's lower levels, where human prisoners were being forced to extract rare crystals from the cave walls. The Drakari guards were focused on the Marines outside, not expecting an attack from below. "Move," Lim whispered to his team. The rescue operation was swift and precise. Marine sharpshooters eliminated the Drakari guards while other soldiers guided the prisoners to safety through the crystal tunnels. Within 30 minutes, every human captive was free. The Drakari commander, war leader Grask, found himself alone in his command center as human soldiers surrounded him. He raised his weapon, but Lim was faster. "It's over," Lim said, his rifle pointed at the alien's chest. "Your fleet is gone. Your ground forces are defeated. Surrender now, and you'll live to see a prison cell." Grask looked around at the human soldiers, his yellow eyes burning with hate. But he could also see something else in their faces. Not the mindless cruelty he expected from conquerors, but the controlled anger of people who had come to rescue their own. Slowly, he placed his weapon on the ground. By the end of the week, the last Drakari resistance had been eliminated or captured. Admiral Dong-hyun Park stood in the rebuilt command center of the Colonial Government Building, reviewing reports from across the planet. "Final casualty count?" he asked his aide. 53,000 human survivors recovered, Lieutenant Min Ho Kang reported. Medical teams estimate another 15,000 died during the occupation. Velkari losses are harder to calculate, but approximately 30,000 of their people are also safe. Park nodded sadly. The number of dead was higher than they had hoped, but lower than they had feared. And thanks to people like Jinho Kim and the brave defenders who had helped establish the underground shelters, tens of thousands of lives had been saved. "What about the Drakari prisoners?" Park asked. 847 captured alive, Kang replied. "They're being held in secure facilities pending decision on their fate." That decision came sooner than expected. Elder Sung Min approached Park later that day with a request that surprised everyone. "Admiral Park," the Velkari said through its translator, "my people wish to speak for the Drakari prisoners." "You want to defend them?" Park asked in amazement. "After what they did to your world?" The crystal being's body pulsed with thoughtful colors. "Not defend, judge. In our ancient traditions, those who are wronged have the right to determine the fate of those who wronged them." Park considered this. The idea of letting the victims decide the punishment had a certain justice to it. "What would your people choose?" he asked. "Exile," Sungmin replied without hesitation. "Send them away from this region of space. Let them find somewhere else to build their empire, far from peaceful worlds. And if they refuse exile, if they try to return, then they will face the full fury of the human fleet," Sungmin said, its crystal body flashing with determined colors. "But first, give them the choice. Show the galaxy that humans and Velkari are merciful to those who accept justice." The decision surprised many of the human military leaders, but Admiral Park understood the wisdom in it. Executing the Drakari. Prisoners would make humanity look bloodthirsty. Holding them prisoner forever would be expensive and complicated. But offering them exile, with the clear threat of destruction if they returned, would demonstrate both mercy and strength. War leader Scarth, the Drakari commander who had started the whole conflict, was brought before a joint human-Velkari tribunal 3 days later. The reptilian alien looked older and more tired than when he had appeared on the first transmission, but his eyes still burned with unrepentant hatred. "You have 2 choices," Admiral Park told him. "Exile from this entire region of space, with the understanding that any Drakari ship found within 50 light-years of human or Velkari territory will be destroyed without warning. Or execution for war crimes." Scarth glared at his captors. "You think this is mercy? You think we will learn to fear you because you spare our lives? I think you'll learn that there are consequences for attacking innocent people." Park replied calmly. "And I think other species will learn that humans are strong enough to show mercy from a position of power." The Drakari leader spat something, in his own language that the translator chose not to interpret. But finally, he nodded. Exile. As the Drakari prisoners were loaded onto their remaining ships and escorted to the edge of human space, reconstruction of New Busan began in earnest. The massive human fleet that had come for war now became a fleet of builders and healers. Engineer Meek Young-oh stood in the ruins of the colony's main city, working with Velkari crystal shapers to design new buildings that would blend human architecture with native crystal technology. The structures they planned would be more beautiful than anything that had existed before and strong enough to withstand any future attacks. "The crystal resonance networks can serve multiple purposes," she explained to the planning committee. "Defense systems, communications, even power generation. If anyone ever attacks us again, the entire planet will be able to respond as one." Dr. Tae-young Yang spent his days helping coordinate medical care for the survivors, but his evenings belonged to his daughter. Na-yoon had grown during her months in hiding, becoming more serious and thoughtful than the carefree 6-year-old who had played in her grandfather's fields. "Daddy," she said one evening as they walked through the crystal gardens that the Velkari were replanting, "Grandfather says I can be anything I want when I grow up. Not just a farmer." "What do you want to be?" Yang asked, holding her small hand as they walked. "A guardian," she replied without hesitation. "Someone who protects people so they never have to hide in caves again." Yang smiled and squeezed her hand. "That's a very important job. Grandfather taught me about it," Na-on continued. "He said that when bad things happen, good people have to stand up and help. That's what makes us human." The old farmer Jin-ho Kim had indeed become something of a teacher during the reconstruction. Every day, he could be found in the temporary schools, telling children stories about courage and kindness, about standing up for those who couldn't protect themselves. The Drakari thought strength meant taking whatever you wanted, he told a group of young students. But real strength means protecting what matters, even when it's hard. 6 months after the liberation, New Busan was transformed. The new cities were works of art, with crystal spires that caught the sunlight and gardens that bloomed year-round. The agricultural districts were more productive than ever, using advanced techniques developed during the reconstruction. Captain So-min Lee, who had been presumed dead but had actually spent the occupation leading an underground resistance movement, was promoted to colonel and put in charge of the planet's new defense force. The orbital platforms she designed were based on captured Drakari technology but improved with human engineering and Velkari crystal networks. "We're not just rebuilding," she explained to a gathering of colonial leaders. "We're building something better, something that can protect itself and help protect others." The changes weren't just physical. The experience of occupation and liberation had brought the human and Velkari communities closer together than ever before. Children of both species played together in the crystal gardens. Human engineers worked alongside Velkari crystal shapers. The two peoples had become true partners, united by shared suffering and shared hope. Admiral Park stood on the observation deck of the government building on the first anniversary of Liberation Day, watching as children flew kites in the restored parks below. The human fleet had departed months ago, leaving behind only a small garrison and a promise that help would always come if needed. "Sir," said his aide, handing him a communication tablet.